All right, we're live, everyone. Hey, how's it going? My name is Carlin Barasenko. This is the Decode the Left podcast Substack live stream. I don't really know. I'm live streaming on Substack. I try to do these live streams pretty regularly throughout the week to just download some quick thoughts or do some quick updates. This seems to be replacing my article writing now. So for those of you who are new to the Substack, you might not know that I actually have a really large archive of articles and just different breakdowns of the far left. You can always check out the Woke 101 tab at the top of the Substack. Again, that is Carlin, Karlyn.substack.com. You can check out the Woke Mind series I wrote a couple years ago. Maybe that's due for an update. I should take a look at that. You can check out the How to Speak Socialist section, and up at the top, you'll find the pinned How to Speak Socialist presentation. That is a great resource for new people. So I'm moving more so into doing kind of, I think, these live streams on Substack, which then post as a podcast that people can listen to on Apple and Spotify and all that stuff. Just because it's easier and it's actually better for my workflow, and I feel like we get a chance to have a conversation about some things. You guys can ask questions, and honestly, the responses I've been getting seems like you guys are actually more engaged with this anyway. So this is not to say we won't be doing more articles on the Substack. I think we probably will be, but I'm enjoying doing these live streams, and I hope you guys are enjoying them as well. Okay, let's talk New College of Florida update. So last night, the New College of Florida did respond to me, and hey, you got to give credit where credit is due. I call balls and strikes. I don't I don't mess around with this stuff. I actually do try to be pretty nuanced and down the middle and forgiving and having grace. I will say I did not expect a response that quickly, so I was impressed by that. I also was hopeful that they would actually answer all of the questions that I asked them, which they did not. They deflected with this bullshit PR statement. Yes, we had her on campus, but we had other people on campus too, darling. And I'm like, well, yeah, that's great you had other people on campus, New College of Florida. I am asking about this one person, though. Do not try to deflect from the topic of conversation. You could have as many right-wing speakers as you want on campus. I don't really care. In fact, you could also have a whole bunch of leftists on campus too, and I still wouldn't care about that. I am talking about a very specific person. Judith Butler is not any leftist. Judith Butler is the godmother of queer theory. Without Judith Butler, queer theory today would not exist as we know it. Without Judith Butler, queer Marxism would not be making the rise that it is. And by the way, Christopher Rufo, you do not even understand queer Marxism. I know you think you do, but you don't. I have been inside queer Marxist subcultures for 3 years now. I know everything there is to know about these people. And you guys don't know what you're talking about, and you don't know what you're dealing with. And the reason that this problem that you haven't even identified yet, bro, is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's going to hit you right in the face, and you're not going to know what hit you. And what hit you was the influence of Judith Butler. Judith Butler is highly influential on today's queer Marxist activists. The militant ones, the violent ones, the ones that attacked that Turning Point USA event a couple months ago on the college campus, the ones that were outside protesting the walkaway rally, the ones holding the Queers Bash Back sign, which you're going to start to hear more of because Bash Back, which is a militant queer anarchist organization that is different than Antifa, they are different groups. Bash Back has just reconstituted in Los Angeles at the Anarchist Book Fair. So you're going to start seeing more of that. And you think Antifa's bad? There's some overlap between Bashback and Antifa, but Bashback is way more into queer ideology. I promise you. And that's not good for anyone. So, what we learned last night in these documents is that Christopher Rufo absolutely knew that Judith Butler was coming to campus. He absolutely knew about this whole thing. He approved of this whole thing. I think he did because I can't imagine that they would have offered him up as a moderator for this discussion with Judith Butler if he hadn't agreed to it already. The reason that I know that remember when we first saw the Judith Butler talk. Let's back up. When we first saw that Judith Butler spoke at New College of Florida, and you can go back and watch my live stream about this at the time, we were kind of like, why? Why is this happening? And my first thought, and this was honest to God, the first thing that popped into my head. I have worked in higher education. I worked in higher education for 10 years. I talk about this every time I do the New College of Florida stream because I want people to know I'm not unfamiliar with this environment, okay? I worked across a bunch of different colleges over the course of 10 years. I was a consultant for colleges. I worked at a consultancy. I also did consulting on my own. I've worked with college presidents. I've worked with college cabinets. I've worked with college board of trustees. I've done all of that stuff. You might not guess it today, but I actually did in the before times. When we heard it was Judith Butler and we watched that talk, my first thought was, does Christopher Rufo know about this? Because being on the board of trustees at a college or a university, that doesn't mean you're involved in every day-to-day decision at the college. You're just not. That's not what a board of trustee is. A board of trustee is someone that goes to fundraising things and they show up for meetings a couple times a year and they get schmoozed around campus and they're the leaders of the college. They do make the decisions, like they hire the president, they can fire the president too. So the board of trustees is a really important position, but it's not a position that is active in the day-to-day operations of a college. So my first thought was, does Christopher Rufo even know? And I gave him the benefit of the doubt. I really did. In my head, I'm like, he couldn't have known about this. And then I saw the tweet that he sent out about the event, where he was kind of like, it seemed like it was the kind of tweet that I would expect him to send if he was trying to kind of cover for something, but that he didn't really know what was going on. It was such a vague tweet. And it was obvious to me. I was like, when we saw that, when we watched the live stream, we were like, did he watch this talk? Did he because he tweeted something like, I heard it was a rigorous discussion or something like that. And we were like, did he watch this before he posted this? I mean, okay, these are minor little things, right? But I was like, was he actually involved at all? Trying to say, I didn't actually think he was involved in the decision to bring Judith Butler to campus. It did not cross my mind that Christopher Rufo would have been involved in the decision to bring Judith Butler to campus. Why didn't he say no? Why didn't he say no? Why was this his idea? Because here's what we know from these documents. By the way, I have them all up on my Twitter. I'm gonna put a link. Well, I have the main screenshots up on my Twitter. I'm gonna put a link to or a PDF of the public records request I got in the show notes of this podcast, so you can find that over on the Substack, and that way you guys can look for yourself. This is a public records request, and again, I have to say kudos to the New College of Florida turning the public records request right around. That was super quick. They didn't charge me any money. So again, listen, I'm really not trying to start beef here for no reason. I don't want to attack the New College of Florida needlessly. I have very grave concerns about this entire situation and what it means for the bigger picture. So listen, I'm going to say this again. I worked in higher ed a long time. If I'm making the lives difficult of some people at New College of Florida right now that are web people or marketing people, and you guys aren't really involved in these decisions, I am sorry. Okay? Truly and sincerely, I've been in your position before. It is not my intent to make your lives difficult, but I have questions about this and what it means for the larger picture, and that's bigger than your guys' feelings. Okay? So sorry if this is a pain in the ass, but this is just the way that this is happening. So, Judith Butler, hang on. Let me show you some documents. These are up on my Twitter, but I will make them available on the Substack too. Whoop. There's my screen. This is on Twitter, and these are all public records. Judith Butler got paid a speaking fee, an honorarium of $2,500 to appear at the New College of Florida. They also put her up at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel for a couple days and they paid for her flights. Listen, all that is pretty standard. Like I'm going to say this, like, do I like that the New College of Florida paid Judith Butler any speaking fee at all? No. I will say that is actually a very low speaking fee. When I was speaking at events like this, and I was nowhere near as famous as Judith Butler, I got paid more than that. And so I actually maybe have some personal satisfaction that Judith Butler's honorarium is only $2,500 because that actually speaks volumes to me. And that might be a good indicator. But still, the New College of Florida paid her. Oh shit. I hope I didn't have anything on my screen. No porn, no porn. No, there's no porn on my screen, I promise you. We're going over the Judith Butler documents that I got from New College last night. So this is Judith Butler's speaking contract. We talked about that in the last in the part 1 of this. Let's see. This is okay, so we know now who actually organized the gig, and actually, if you go back to the speaking fee, this is this is the chief of staff at New College. So basically, the person who authorized this basically works directly for the president to like run the college. The person who reached out for the talk, her name is, and it's exactly who I thought it was, by the way. I figured out who it was from the website. She is also like a deputy chief of staff at the college. So she again like reports, I'm pretty sure, to the president, director of government relations. I'm not entirely clear why a college of that size has that, but okay, whatever. So this is just showing who actually reached out. So they actually proactively asked Judith Butler to speak on campus. They reached out to her. This wasn't one of those things where like a speaking agency reached out to them and was like, oh, do you want to maybe try to do something fun? It wasn't that. It was they proactively selected her to reach out to her to ask her to come to speak on campus, which I personally find to be an interesting choice. And we're going to continue to talk about that. What is this? This is, okay, check this out. When Judith Butler agreed to do the talk, she actually suggested that New College of Florida bring these other woke speakers to campus. And so it kind of almost seems like, and I don't know, like, here's my question from this. Was the New College of Florida thinking about doing, like, literally bringing woke speakers onto campus and just not challenging their ideas at all? Like, or were they trying to pull something? I've been thinking about this, and I think that the best case scenario, and I'll talk about this a little bit more as we make our way through these documents. I think the best case scenario is honestly that maybe Christopher Rufo was trying to set Judith Butler up to really like nail her ass on the stage, like figuratively, obviously, intellectually. Oh God, gross, gross. Don't make me think about that. But to figuratively and intellectually nail her from the stage, that would have actually been a pretty based move, if I'm being honest about it. You know, if Christopher Rufo concocted this plan where he was trying to set Judith Butler up, and then maybe he was going to try to set up a series of woke speakers to set them up to totally ambush them, that would have actually been a pretty good move. And I think that that would have been something that I would have supported, and I think it would have been pretty great. And it certainly would have been much more anti-woke than letting Judith Butler come to campus and negotiate with the moderator beforehand, which I'm going to show you, and say whatever she wants, which we've already established before. It's like, is this some publicity stunt gone wrong? Or was this a serious thing where they were like, yes, Judith Butler is the very best speaker that we can have on our college campus? Let's see. Oh, this is funny. So Judith Butler actually asked if she could like dictate what people do with the video of the speech. And I was like, Judith, do you not know how the internet works? Like, this speech is on New College of Florida's YouTube channel. It is a public YouTube channel. Other people on the internet can just take this content and use it, and it's completely fair use to do so. So, like, Judith Butler was trying to control who could make clips of this, and I was just like, I was laughing when I was reading that. But you can see here, Alexandra says to Judith Butler, or her agent, We would like to ask if Judith would speak with Peter Boghossian or Christopher Rufo for this discussion. So was this some cockamamie plan that Peter Boghossian was conspiring with Christopher Rufo on? And if it was a cockamamie plan, which again, I think the cockamamie plan of like sabotaging Judith Butler on stage, if that's what they were trying to do, that would actually be really effing cool. But I'm not convinced that's what they were trying to do. Like, what was the actual plan? Why did they think this was a good idea? And I have further questions because obviously this didn't work out. Like, obviously neither Peter Boghossian or Christopher Rufo was the speaker. And I'll say this too. Um, there was no kind of like, they kept asking the question of who would you like to speak with on campus? Who would you like to speak with on campus? Who would you like to speak with on campus? Over and over and over and over and over again. And basically, there was no answer in the emails. So I think what probably happened is they just picked up the phone and talked to each other. So I don't know why it didn't work out that Rufo wasn't the person on stage or that Peter Boghossian wasn't on stage. But it's like, here's one of two possibilities. Was it a plan to intellectually nail Judith Butler's ass down? If that was the idea, then it was good. If the plan was, we think Judith Butler should have a free stage to say whatever the F she wants, crazy bullshit that contributed to queer Marxism as we know it today, with no pushback, that seems like a less effective plan to me. And I just don't know why that can't be admitted. Because that's what happened. What's this? Oh, again, they're talking about, oh, this was funny. Check this out. Okay. So they're calling him Trusty Rufo. Now listen, I worked in higher education for 10 years. I have interacted with board of trustees on more than one occasion at more than one school, including in Ivy League schools. I worked at an Ivy League school. I have never called a trustee such and such. You're very polite with the trustees, of course. The trustees run the college. The trustees are usually major donors to the college, so they give a lot of money. They're usually very nice people too. I mean, like, there's no reason to be mean to them, right? They're very nice people, right? And so you treat them with respect. You say, "Sir, ma'am," doctor. But I have never ever called a trustee Trustee Rufo. Or trustee such and such, or like, I've never actually heard of that, and I've been around. I mean, maybe that's a new thing. I mean, I don't know, but I just thought that that was kind of funny. Maybe that is a thing, and I just never at a college that I interacted with, but, whatever. Whatever floats your boat, whatever fancy titles float your boat. Let's see. Mizakan says Alex Byrne maybe could nail her. He's written books on the subject. No, I haven't read them. Rufo and Boghossian are lightweights. Well, but could he though? Could he? I'm not Mizakan. Here's the thing that's like running through my mind about this whole thing, because again, I'm not actually that interested in this like one specific incident. I want to know why it happened. I don't care about Judith Butler giving a talk that's easy to debunk, right? She does that all the time. I care about why it happened. Like, why did they make these decisions? What are they trying to do? What are they trying to prove? Because, like, the thing of it is Christopher Rufo is a major player on all different levels. And so anything that he's involved with and anything that he's directly connected to, I'm sorry, but that connects to things that I care about. And yes, I know that my platform's not as big as his, and I'm not as influential, and I'm not in the club and he is, and that's fine. I don't want to be in the club and I never did. But like, my point is that I'm sorry, I'm not an insignificant voice in this space. I train hundreds of thousands, actually, hundreds of thousands of people a month on the far left. I do this better than anyone else on the internet. I have a larger archive of leftist content than anyone on the internet. These people know who I am, and if they don't and they haven't been following the stuff I've been putting out there, which is literally years ahead of theirs, then they are derelict in their duty, and I don't feel the need to be nice to them. This is something I care about deeply. And Christopher Rufo being able to influence the space, and he can't even keep queer Marxism off the fucking campus. And not only that he didn't keep it off, but that he seemed to agree with it in the first place. Anyway, I'm going to continue to rant about that. Regarding the format, Stanley Fish proposes he will introduce Butler. I want to do some Q&A. Oh, what is this email? This email is basically showing that New College of Florida asked Judith Butler explicitly what she did not want to discuss. So I understand that they probably do the standard thing for all their speakers. But again, I'm not talking about all your speakers. I am talking about the woman that created queer Marxism. This is not the same thing as every other speaker. So why are you giving the woman that is responsible for so much of the bullshit that we have to deal with in the world, the woman that is responsible for Drag Queen Story Hour, the woman that is responsible ultimately, these were her ideas. These things would not happen without Judith Butler. This woman has been a major contributor, in the least, to the epidemic of kids believing they are trans and non-binary and queer in schools when they are simply autistic. This ideology that Judith Butler pioneered led to the targeting of autistic children to try to indoctrinate them to queer ideology in autistic sex education. I have this on video. All of these ideas came from Judith Butler. So, I'm sorry. I do not believe that the New College of Florida should be offering Judith Butler any opportunity to say, I will not discuss X, Y, B, and Z if you are bringing her to a talk to campus. That seems to tie your hands a little bit in exposing her. Let's see. Oh, this is even better. So the moderator of the discussion, the one who didn't push back at all. Do you guys remember how we were so confused about how the moderator didn't push back at all on her at the anti-woke college when she was blatantly lying from the stage, and it was so easy to disprove what she was saying? I didn't even try that hard, and I did it. And we all wondered, how did this person not push back on her at all? Why was this person basically fawning over her, saying, Judith, you are so great and you are so amazing and all this and all that and all the other? Well, it turns out Judith had a phone call with the moderator before the discussion. They colluded. They spoke privately before the discussion. Are you kidding me? Does anyone else have a problem with this? I have a problem with this. I don't like this. Okay, let's go to the next set of screenshots. And I picked out the good ones, guys, just to give you a basic mise en scène. So again, okay, so this is again where I think we already saw this one. I think that's our duplicate. My bad. Let's see. No, I saw this one already. Dang. Did I click on the right thing? No, I guess that is the ones that I already had up. Never mind. That is all the ones. Did I show you guys all these? Yes, I did. Okay. So now we know what happened. Someone, and it's unclear who made this decision, but someone thought it was a good idea to invite Judith Butler to campus. Actually, I wonder if I can do a public records request. Here's my question. The public records request I sent in was all electronic communications from the point of inviting Judith Butler to campus and about that decision. Here's my question. Did the New College of Florida give me all the electronic communications about Judith Butler? Or did they just give me everything from the moment that they actually invited her to campus? So, what I'm trying to get at is I wonder if there were meetings or emails about who should we invite to campus? What about Judith Butler? Is that a good idea? I think that's a pretty bad idea. Oh, I think that's a great idea. We can ambush her with questions to really, kind of nail her down in front of everyone. No, I think that's a bad idea. Was there anything like that that happened prior to them actually inviting her onto campus? Would the New College of Florida have included that in the records request I gave them, or would they try to worm their way out of it by saying she only requested the electronic communications starting from the invitation? Hmm. Might have to do another public records request. We'll see. But my bigger question is this. Why did this happen? Going back to this, why? Why did Christopher Rufo and apparently Peter Boghossian think it was a good idea to have Judith Butler speak at the New College of Florida, the anti-woke college? Why did they think that was a good idea? What was the plan? Who suggested this idea? Was there any pushback or discussion about this idea? Did they ever stop to consider that the things that they spend all their time complaining about but don't really understand all went through Judith Butler? Do they even understand that? That is honestly the biggest question. Does the president of New College, the anti-woke college, even understand what woke means? I covered this on yesterday's stream. I said I showed you the screenshot of it. It's on Twitter. You can go see it. This is a public thing. Someone tweeted at me and said, I talked to the president of New College about this, and he said Judith Butler was just great, and he was just upset she didn't get more pushback from the stage. What on earth made him think that inviting Judith Butler to campus was a good idea if he's the anti-woke college? Can anyone right now think of someone in the country that we would say is more influential in woke, quote unquote woke, than Judith Butler? Is there anyone that we can say has had more influence on today's modern leftist activists, the most dangerous ones at that? The most dangerous leftist activists in the country. I'm sorry, there is no one alive today that has had more influence on the most dangerous leftist activists in the country than Judith Butler. And it's not even close. I don't feel like I'm upset for no reason. I'm upset. And by the way, I'm not even trying to cause drama. I'm not even trying to do that. I don't give a flying flip about drama. I actually have questions here. If I cared about drama, I would go be making clickbait bullshit of James Lindsay all the time. He was just on Roseanne yesterday. I'm sure there's a million stupid clips of James Lindsay on Roseanne that I could be clipping out of context to try to own James. I could write another song about him and how he sucks and all that stuff. If I cared about drama, I would be targeting James and his ongoing mental breakdown. I'm not actually trying to start shit with Christopher Rufo, but Christopher Rufo is too important and too influential to not be called on his bullshit when he makes a mistake. And he might not like it, and he may unfollow me on Twitter, and I don't really give a flying fuck, Chris. Why did you think this was a good idea? Why did you do this? Yeah, you're more influential than me, bro. I got it. Really. But I can't help but feel like giving Judith Butler this platform is spitting in the face of everyone who actually cares about solving this problem. My community has been studying anarcho-queer subcultures for like 2 straight fucking years together. I have been embedded in these actually, no, more than 2 years, it's going on to 3 years. I have been embedded in these subcultures for years. These people are more dangerous than you understand, and you have never reported on them. They are more numerous than you understand, and you guys have never really reported on it and never warned people. They're not the same people that Andy Ngo talks about. There is some overlap. There's absolutely some overlap, but Andy Ngo's Trantifa thing is not real. There are militant queer anarchists, and the people that he's exposing are militant queer anarchists, but Trantifa is not a thing. There are actually real violent militant queer organizations on the left that you guys aren't talking about. And then you invite them onto campus. You pay them $2,500. You sell 250 copies of their book. Oh, this is the other thing. Here's what happened with the book. Here's what New College said. They always sell speakers books at speaking things, but their cash register was down. And so some generous private donor came in and bought the 250 books and said, hand them out to students for free. And I thought about this and I was like, okay, well, okay, so first off, there's a couple problems with that. Well, actually, let's start with the good thing. In higher education, they like to sandwich feedback, which is a thing you should never do. I was an organizational psychologist after I worked in higher education. Never sandwich feedback, but this is something they like to do in higher education. It's wrong, but we'll do it anyway. I'm going to say a good thing about the New College of Florida. The good thing is the New College of Florida apparently did not spend taxpayer money on these books. Yay! Good job. Excellent. I would like to know where you got the $2,500 from. Was that $2,500 honorarium taxpayer money? But excellent on the books. Excellent work. Really, really appreciate that. And I appreciate the quick turnaround time on these documents. Thank you. See, we're being nice. And now we're going to say something critical. We're going to say, what donor at the New College of Florida just whips out a credit card when your credit card machine is down? Or I guess maybe he could have paid you later, whatever. That's, legit. But what private donor at the anti-woke New College of Florida just whips out a check for 250 books? Gender studies books to give away to students for free. Who does that at the anti-woke university? Who does that? Let's just say that he bought those books cheap and they were like $10 a book. That's like $2,500 to give students at New College of Florida, the anti-woke college, gender studies books for free. So that seems an odd donation to accept, if I'm being frank. It seems an odd donation to happen anyway at the anti-woke college, but the fact remains that New College of Florida was perfectly willing to sell Judith Butler's book. There was nothing in the agreement that said that they had to sell the book, by the way. This is actually, I didn't even think of this until just now. I don't recall there being anything in the agreement that said they couldn't sell books or that they had to sell books. So New College of Florida maybe made the decision on their own to voluntarily sell Judith Butler's gender studies book on campus. It is possible, Mizakan, that Butler's team brought the books. That is absolutely a possibility. That could have happened too. But why would if Judith Butler's team brought the book? That's even worse. That's even worse if that happened. So let's just say Judith Butler's team brought with them 250 copies of Judith's book, okay? And they said, "Hey, we would like to give you these books to sell." Then the New College of Florida is profiting off of it's even worse if it came from them because the New College of Florida could say, "No, no, no, we didn't agree to sell your book." They could have said that. Why are they voluntarily taking gender studies books to sell to students at the anti-woke college? It's just weird. Again, it's kind of like this. None of this is the end of the world. I really, again, I want to make this clear. None of this is the end of the world. It's just so many weird decisions all in a row that don't make sense. It makes sense if it's a normal college. It makes sense if it's like literally every other college in the country. And I don't expect the New College of Florida to be perfect, but it doesn't make sense if you're the anti-woke college to even invite her to campus in the first place. Yesterday on my stream, we started trying to watch a really advanced workshop about psychoanalytics and how psychoanalytics relates to queer Marxism. And it was just too advanced for me. I haven't thought about Freud in a long time. Yes, I know I have a PhD in psychology, but I haven't thought about Freud in a long time. This relates back to New College. We're doing a little loop. So we had to switch and watch an introduction to Freud at Yale, a video that was made 16 years ago to get a little bit more balanced perspective. But the question I was wrestling with is, I know that queer Marxists are obsessed with Freud. I know that queer Marxists, many of them are psychoanalysts. They actually go to school to study and they practice this stuff. It's crazy. Yesterday, we were listening to a talk that it was way too advanced for us. I need to ease my way into this about Freud and queer theory and gender and sexuality and all that stuff. And I don't understand what all the language means, but I know enough to know that it's fucking crazy. And the question I was left with was, how did we go from Freud to queer theory? How did that evolution happen? Because, I gotta be honest, I actually enjoyed the Yale class about Freud. I thought it was interesting. It reminded me a lot of the basics, and I thought it was actually really good. And so we're watching this kind of like very introductory class to Freud, and I'm like, how did these ideas transform into queer theory? Because I know there's a connection. I just don't know what that is. Well, let's enter the land of Chat GPT. My internet boyfriend, the internet love of my life. Hang on. Boop. In the land of ChatGPT, I asked, explain to me how Freud evolved into queer theory. And the timeline that I got was, and this makes complete sense. Timeline that I got was Freud in the 1900s through Lacan in 1950s through 70s, which makes sense because we've been hearing a lot about Lacan lately. I mean, Lacan has been mentioned like basically every stream this week on the channel. And then it went through Foucault, which makes a ton of sense. And then it went right through Judith Butler. There are four major figures in the development of Freud's insane ideas. Because Freud may have had some good ideas. Okay, fine. Freud also had insane ideas. There are four people that lead from Freud's insane ideas to queer Marxism. And the final person in the chain is Judith Butler. And listen, here's the other half of this. And I posted a picture of this on Twitter. And this is something I actually am going to write about in my book that I'm working on about queer Marxism. So the timing of this was perfect. Judith is the bottom row. Judith's contribution is gender is performed, identity is fiction, and it is the birth of queer theory as anti-essentialist. Queer theory, queer Marxism, as we know it, would not exist without Judith Butler. And we already knew that, but seeing it explained so simply and so explicitly, AI is one of the greatest gifts we've been given. If you know the right questions to ask, to see it explained this simply and this explicitly, I have to ask, Chris, do you guys even know what woke is? Do you even know what woke is? Woke is Marxism. This is where woke comes from. Judith Butler is the godmother of queer theory. They write about her and call her the godmother of queer theory. If you go to the anarchist library and look up Judith Butler's name, you will see how deeply influential Judith Butler is in the development of queer Marxism, violent queer Marxism, transmilitanism, gender nihilism. Have you even read Gender Nihilism, Chris? Do you know where Judith Butler's ideas lead? Because I've read Gender Nihilism and my community has read Gender Nihilism. We're working on it in the Counter-Revolutionary Book Club right now. We're also working on a book about queer ultraviolence. It's called Queer Ultraviolence. None of these things would exist without Judith Butler. Judith Butler, I am 90% sure, was involved in the subcultures in which these ideologies originally developed in the 70s or the 80s. I am almost positive, because I'll tell you what, Chris, one of the things you don't understand is that Judith Butler's ideas didn't come from Judith Butler. They came from underground subcultures, mostly in the punk community, that Judith Butler and people like her were involved in because they were anarcho-communist punks. I have all this documented, bro. Do you even know about the queercore movement? Do you even know about any of this? The reason this is important to know is that these ideas lead to one of the most dangerous ideologies that exists in the country today, and you let the godmother of that ideology on campus with a microphone to say whatever the fuck she wanted. No pushback. It is a betrayal, Chris. If you were trying to do some PR stunt, fine. I actually respect it. Like I said earlier, if that was the play, if the play was some sort of PR stunt where you were going to do something or Peter Boghossian was going to do something to nail Judith Butler's ass intellectually to the wall, I would have said, bravo, good sir. And no one would have been happier about it than me. I would have been thrilled if that's what you guys were doing. But I don't think that's what happened. Yeah, people have been chatting in. I am fired up today. This bothers me. I'm like, I feel this on, you guys don't understand. I feel this on a deeply personal level because I was in higher education for so long. I understand these environments. And it's just like, are you kidding me? It's like, I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed, asshole. Let's see. Mizakan says, oh, I don't know what that means, Mizakan. I'm not reading that on screen. Not reading that. Okay. Yeah. People in the chat are basically saying this was an F up. This was wrong. This was a fuck up. You guys fucked up. But listen, here's the other thing. Again, I'm not being an unreasonable person here. As pissed off as I am about this, and again, like, I don't hang on to, like, do you guys know, okay, so people who don't know my content and maybe you're finding it because of this, I hope you understand, like, I see wackier shit than this all the time. And I have seen some of the craziest things on the internet that you've ever seen. Far worse than this. And those things don't stick in my head as long as this thing with Judith Butler and the New College of Florida has stuck in my head. Because I expect crazy, insane bullshit from the left. I am so desensitized to it. I can see a video of leftists saying, yeah, we're going to violently overthrow the federal government, which I have seen and exposed many, many times. And it doesn't even faze me anymore. But I don't expect this bullshit from people who are supposed to be on the right or the people who are supposed to be anti-woke. Is it too much to ask to say, yeah, we could have handled that differently. Thanks. Yep, could have handled it differently. Is it too much to ask? To have some acknowledgement. Or even to say, yeah, we had a different thing planned and that thing didn't quite work out. Own the fucking mistake. But right now, what it looks like is that New College of Florida and New College of Florida's president and Christopher Rufo and Peter Boghossian and the staff at New College are completely fine with the godmother of queer Marxism on campus saying whatever the fuck she wants with no pushback. And I have a very big problem with that as someone who has dedicated my life and my very sanity to studying the far left, watching the far left, exposing the far left for years and years and years and years and years. I have been in the trenches with this for literally years. I have a right to be pissed off about this, and anyone who actually cares about defeating the left has a right to be pissed off about this when people on our own fucking side do shit like this for no reason. You want to have diverse views on campus? Find a different leftist. Find someone who is not responsible for the most insane leftist ideologies that exist in the country today. Find literally anyone. Do you guys want a list of communists? New College of Florida. Do you want me to provide you with a list of communists and socialists that I wouldn't complain about you having on campus? Because I will. You want to have communists and socialists on campus? Go right the fuck ahead. There are millions of them out there, many of whom, by the way, are far more interesting than Judith Butler. Why don't you bring Sophie Lewis onto campus to talk about family abolition? You want to talk about diverse ideas? You want to have a socialist on your campus? Why don't you, in lieu of discussions about parents' rights, bring Sophie Lewis onto campus to talk about how she wants to abolish the nuclear family and she doesn't consider anyone that isn't an anti-capitalist to be a real feminist? Why don't you bring her onto campus? She's way more interesting, way more fun. I'm not complaining because you brought a leftist onto campus. I'm complaining because you brought that leftist onto campus. And you won't acknowledge it was a mistake, and you seem to have approved of it beforehand, Rufo. It's just unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Whatever. There's nothing we can do about it. They're going to do what they're going to do. They're going to continue to ignore this. And, we'll scream into the ether about it and we'll make fun of him and stuff like that. I don't feel terribly inclined, and this is the honest truth, and people can believe it or not. I don't feel terribly inclined to get into a war with Christopher Rufo. I don't actually want that. I'm not going to be like James Lindsay and start subtweeting him beyond things that are actually directly his responsibility. I'm sorry, Chris. This fucking Judith Butler thing is your fucking responsibility, and I will subtweet you about this as many times as I want, as often as I want. I will go into your replies until you block me. If you block me, I will publicize that, and I will say, oh my God, look, Chris Rufo doesn't want to take responsibility for the thing that he obviously and clearly did. When all you had to do was DM me and say, Carlin, yeah, maybe you're right about that. Literally, I'm going to say this. I want to say this clearly. If Chris Rufo had just DM'd me at any point and said, yeah, Carlin, you're probably right about that. That was a mistake, not my best moment. Okay. Yeah, got it. Okay. Literally, that's all it would have taken to shut me up. I am not inclined to get in a fight with him over this. I have way too much shit I'm working on. I want to get at least 3 more books done before the end of the year. And we're talking about 2 of them are very big books. I have a nonprofit I'm starting to launch. I have a research schedule and an infiltration schedule that is rapidly filling up because leftists are organizing so much. There is so much shit to cover on the left. Actually, 4 more books. I'm working on 4. I remember the other book I'm working on. I don't want to spend time arguing with Christopher Rufo any more than I wanted to spend time arguing with James Lindsay. Now, James Lindsay, that was a different argument because James was wrongly informing millions of people about the left, and I can't have that. If James is going to be spewing lies and bullshit and convincing people of things that are not real, then I'm going to go and fight with him until he either stops or he moves on to something else. And lucky for us, James is now obsessed with this woke right bullshit, which also isn't real. And so James is no longer my concern. This is why you don't see me fighting with James anymore. Because James is obsessed with something else now. He's no longer misinforming people about the left. Therefore, ergo, I have no fucking problem. And I just want to be able to focus on what I want to do. Same thing with Christopher Rufo. Even though he works with the Manhattan Institute and the Manhattan Institute claims to believe in meritocracy, even though they really don't, because they fired the preeminent distinguished Black economist, Glenn Loury, because Glenn had the gall to interview someone that someone at the Manhattan Institute didn't like. And so they fired Glenn Loury, but they're still, employing hardcore porn star Christina Buttons. And I don't care whatever excuse Christina Buttons makes about being traumatized as a child. Listen, childhood trauma is sad. I'm not trying to dismiss it. But I was traumatized as a child too. And so were many other people. And we didn't all grow up to become hardcore porn stars for what was it, 7 or 8 years or something like that? She made a lot of hardcore porn videos. Anyway, Christina Buttons, who went by the porn name Rita Lovely, she is still employed at the Manhattan Institute as a journalist. While Glenn Loury, preeminent, distinguished, Black, Ivy League economist, gets fired for having an interview with someone they didn't like. So I have to say that I don't believe the Manhattan Institute believes in meritocracy, and I think that's a real shame because Christopher Rufo seems to talk about meritocracy a lot. Just think it's a real shame. But I don't actually want to be in a fight with him. I really don't. I don't want to be in a fight with anyone. But when stuff like this happens, it makes things harder for us. When people on our own side are giving the other team W's. And you can forgive mistakes. Mistakes are not something we should hold over people's heads forever. But when the mistake is not acknowledged, then none of us have any assurance that the mistake is even recognized. I don't know that Christopher Rufo understands what woke is now. I really don't. I think has he gotten pulled too far into this narrative-driven bullshit that he does, that he doesn't even understand what it means anymore. I don't know. Does the president of the supposed anti-woke college in Florida understand what woke means if he thinks that Judith Butler is oh so great? I don't know. Judith Butler has plenty of ways to platform her ideas. She's been going around to colleges and doing podcast interviews, and we've watched a lot of them on my channel. She says the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. I'm not arguing that Judith Butler should be canceled from all platforms everywhere. Judith Butler should be allowed to speak, and she should be allowed to say what she wants. And then we should attack her ideas rigorously and intellectually as we do. But for the New College of Florida to proactively extend an invitation, for Chris Rufo and Peter Boghossian to know about that ahead of time and seem to have no problem with it, for there to be a phone call between Judith Butler and the moderator of that discussion to discuss how they wanted it to go beforehand, which indicates to me there was never going to be any pushback on Judith Butler on the stage. To pay Judith Butler $2,500 to sell 250 copies of her book and to give them away to students for free, it's not the biggest deal by itself. What's a far bigger deal is why they can't admit it was a mistake. Because I think the reason they can't admit it was a mistake is they don't want to acknowledge that it is totally and completely fuck off woke. You cannot rely on any of these people. You really can't. I posted about this on Twitter, but like every single person involved in the so-called anti-woke movement since I've been around for 5 years, and I've been around longer than most, almost every single one of them has turned out to be just a colossal disappointment. James Lindsay lost his fucking mind. Jordan Peterson lost his mind. Konstantin Kisin turned out to be a moron and just a total sellout grifter. Dave Rubin went from don't burn this book into censorious authoritarian. Who else? Who else? Helen Pluckrose is insane. I don't have any particular beef with Peter Boghossian, but I also don't think that Peter Boghossian is really that far ahead. I think that me and my community are much further ahead than Peter Boghossian, but I don't have any major beef with Peter Boghossian. It is funny how Peter Boghossian always seems to be involved in things. Peter Boghossian is one of the initial people on the board or whatever on the paperwork for New Discourses, which is James Lindsay's thing, which means Peter Boghossian actively co-signs James Lindsay losing his mind. Peter Boghossian is also now connected with New College of Florida for some reason. I don't know what's going on there. I don't have any particular beef with him, though. I don't really care. I don't find his work interesting. I don't find him particularly insightful. He doesn't know anything that I don't already know. His stuff is actually behind mine in many ways. I'm not trying to seem like a bitch, but that's just the truth. Yeah, you saw him in the New Discourses paperwork? Yeah, I did too. Misakan says woke is whatever Paul Singer and Ron DeSantis tell him it is. Yeah, that's the problem with Christopher Rufo, isn't it? Woke is whatever Paul Singer and Ron DeSantis tell him it is. That's why they're still being taught woke stuff in schools. Did you guys know that almost 2 years ago now, I went undercover at the Socialism Conference in 2023 in Chicago? One of the sessions I recorded at the Socialism Conference was a man named Jesse Hagopian. Jesse Hagopian is one of our favorite radical revolutionary socialist teachers to follow because he's always involved in something. In the talk that Jesse Boghossian gave at the Socialism Conference, he explicitly said, and I have this audio on the Substack, people want to hear it, he explicitly said that he advises and engages in fugitive pedagogy or smuggler pedagogy, which is about smuggling banned curriculum into schools. And he told a specific story. He said, I have been something, I'm paraphrasing. I don't remember the exact wording. Don't hold me to the wording, but this is what the story was. Teachers in Florida Zoom me into the classroom to teach things they can't teach. So the teachers in Florida are Zooming in people like Jesse Hagopian to teach all the things to have plausible deniability to say, no. We the teachers of Florida didn't teach it. We just set up the TV and something came out of it. It gives them plausible deniability to say they didn't break the law if they're Zooming someone else in. I have this recorded from almost 2 years ago. I sent that to Ron DeSantis' office. Did they ever do anything? Nope. Never did nothing. I know other people have sent it to Ron DeSantis' office as well. Never did nothing. Jesse Hagopian's still out there all the time. The left is still organizing in Florida. Just yesterday, we talked about it on the stream yesterday, there was some story in the Daily Wire about students in Florida being asked to consider being gay. What if you just turn gay one day? Yeah, Florida's the anti-woke state, all right. It's the lying that really pisses me off. Change takes time. I think we can all forgive people when change doesn't happen overnight, right? I don't expect Florida to become like this anti woke paradise overnight. That takes years, just like it'll take years or decades in other states. You can't undo everything that's already been done overnight. So I think all of us can accept when mistakes are made and when, if these people ever came out and said, these things take time and here's our plan. Like, can we just behave like responsible adults for once? But they never do that. They get up and they have the press conference and they say, we're winning, we're winning. And then everyone believes them. And they go out on their Twitter and they say, woke is dead, woke is dead. And everyone believes them. But have they killed off woke? No. We know woke was on the campus of the New College of Florida in February, giving a talk completely unchallenged to students. Woke was in that Florida classroom where students were taught to write an essay considering what it's like to be gay. I can point you to school districts around the state of Florida that are still teaching critical race theory. It's not that hard to find. I can point you to how they're teaching gender ideology still. It's not that hard to find, but you have to know how to look for it. And most of the time, people on the right don't know how to look for it because they don't fucking listen. So I can forgive mistakes. If you make mistakes, fine. Just say you made a fucking mistake. Yeah, Suzanne says, I want to hear an oops. I would like to hear an oops too. If I had heard an oops, I would have dropped this like months ago. Just proves right and left are simply two sides to the same gross collectivist coin. Truer words have never been spoken. That's why we can't trust anyone. Everyone sucks. Everyone sucks. I know I do a very niche thing on the internet. I don't think my audience will ever be like majorly large. That's not to say like I think we can expand more and I think we should expand more. But like I know I do something that's very niche. I know I do something that's at the very tip of the spear. A lot of people don't understand what I do. But I do deeply care about this. And I do think that we're in a lot of trouble. And I do think that if we don't take this seriously, the left is going to win and we are going to lose because the left just keeps trudging on every single day. And when we are handing them wins, even small wins, like Judith Butler getting to sell 250 copies of her book in New College of Florida, which she was pretty happy about because she talked about it in a speech like a month and a half later. Why are we giving her that win? It's unnecessary. So, whatever. We know what happened now. The mystery is solved. Um, I am absolutely going to be keeping a closer eye on New College of Florida. I kind of want to ignore Christopher Rufo if I'm honest about it. Which I'm sure he would actually appreciate if I did, but I don't know. He's too fucking influential is the thing. Unforced errors. Why is it so hard? Why is it so hard for me to sit in my corner of the internet and cover the far left and talk about the far left and analyze the far left and put out content out there? Like, why can't I just sit and do that? No, everyone else needs to be babysat because none of them actually care about solving this problem. And when they do their bullshit, that prevents me from actually accomplishing what I want to accomplish. It's like we're supposed to be on the same team. Why can't we actually just be reasonable people? I don't get it. I don't get it. Whatever. I'm going to go get ready for my stream, guys. In about 40 minutes, we're going to be starting the 4-hour epic documentary, The Century of the Self. I'm going to have beer. I got some great beer earlier. I'm really excited about it. And I will see you guys then. Take care, guys. Have a good one. We'll see you soon.